Today, we're gathering around the campfire with Mike, a QHS admin whose life is as exciting and grounding as a hike through the mountains. But what trails did he tread to reach these heights? Let's trek into the wilderness and discover the adventures that led Mike to where he is today.
My name is Mike. I live on the left coast, and this is my prequel. When I was growing up, everybody in the neighborhood had a couple acres. We had enough kids in the neighborhood to actually have a small baseball team. Our road that we lived on, we had 1/4 mile that was paved and 1/4 mile that was literally, you couldn't drive a car through it. I mean, we called it the bumpy road for a reason. I have a mom and 2 sisters, and then my dad. My dad taught physical education in the high school, and both my mom and dad graduated from Linfield College. Now, my dad's story is probably one of the most amazing stories that you'll hear. He literally, when he was probably 10 years old, fell off a 2-story building and landed on his legs. And so he hit both of his legs below the knees, and they were broken in approximately 50 different places. And the doctor told him he would never walk. Well, his mother told the doctor that he would, and she would bounce him on his cast up against from the bed, and every day. And you can imagine how painful that was, and the amount of tears that he probably cried. However, he got a scholarship from Linfield College in football, basketball, and track. It was a full ride. So he literally not only healed from that, but he actually is a testament, and his mother is a testament of healing himself, which is, we all have that ability to do that. His love literally was basketball, and he could hit 32 out of 32 pretty much anywhere, in the key. I, on the other hand, really tried hard with basketball, but it wasn't my thing. I just really wasn't interested in it. I was pretty good at flag football in 6th grade, and I wished I had gone on to, tackle football in 7th. But my parents put me in a private school in 7th grade, not because I was a bad kid. It was just that, the church came out with their own, private school, and us kids, myself and my 2 sisters, got elected, to go there, and it was probably one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. And it took me 2 years to kind of dig my way out of that. From that, though, I had my best friend, Glenn. We were both in 7th grade, and Glenn's dad, he had a 4-car garage. He was a master at painting automobiles. He had every tool you could possibly imagine. And for, a 7th, 8th grader, that was one of the most fantastic learning experiences I've ever had in my life. Other than Glenn and I would go to the metal shop in high school, and George Marco was his name. He had bought a wrecked Piper Cub airplane, and it was the wing that actually got wrecked in it. So he took the wing off, and we used that as a template, and he taught Glenn and I how to rebuild that wing with, the little T extrusions, and you drill the holes and you rivet them, and some of them are, you have a fixture and you bend them and you put them under tension. And not only did he teach me that, but he taught me how to weld. He taught me how to run the machinery, all that stuff, for two young boys. And when I entered high school in 10th grade, I already knew everything that was, George had taught me, and I was a TA, and he was my teacher. In the pictures that you guys are looking at, you can see a black powder gun. That black powder gun, George gave me when I was in 8th grade. And because my dad was kind of such a sports nut, he didn't feel that I should have a motorcycle. He didn't feel I should have a gun. And he felt that, I should learn basketball. And I was absolutely no good at it. But what I was good at was fixing things around the house for my mom. And anything that was broken around the house, I would fix it. You could call me a fixer, I guess. And I took everything apart. At the age of 12, I had the opportunity to have the neighborhood go-kart. And I remember, asking my dad for a year straight, "Hey, Dad, can I get a motorcycle?" And he was like, "No, it's too dangerous." So I would look in the newspaper every day for a motorcycle, and I found one for $50. And I remember, and back then we would literally leave in the morning and we would come back at night, because we're out playing. But that particular day I was headed out. Mom asked me, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go buy a motorcycle." "Oh." She goes, "How are you going to get there?" I said, "I'm going to ride the bus." "Oh, okay. So does it run? Are you going to drive it home?" Now she's concerned, right? And I said, "No, I think it's probably in pieces, but the guy told me that, it runs. It used to run." So she says, "Oh, well, let me take you there." Man, I'm telling you, I probably would have had 4 bus transfers getting there because it was on the other side of town. Anyway, we brought it home, and Dad was upset that I got a motorcycle until he saw that it was in 2 boxes and the frame was sitting off to one side, the engine was sitting off to one side, and his words to me was, "Oh, okay, well, you'll never get that running. That's cool." Boom, went in the house. So, it took me about 6 months, sanded the frame, painted everything, got new cables, new tires, was mowing lawns. When I was 12 years old, Dad was on a painting crew with, some of the other athletic coaches, and they would always have me, up high, or I was the gopher. I would always have to make sure that all of their tarps were moved. They had paint in their bucket, and I had to crawl up and down the ladder at the same time and continue to paint. So I was pretty athletic as a child. We would, like on the swing set, we would wait for that highest peak moment and then jump and then, hit and roll. I could literally get on our house. It was a 1-story house, and I could take off running on the roof and then just like sail through the air and then just tuck, hit and roll, and then just keep on running. I was fairly athletic, but I just couldn't play basketball. And by the time I got back into football in 9th grade, I got my clock cleaned. Those guys, literally, they knew exactly what they were doing, and I had no idea. Anyway, once I got the motorcycle going, it was the one day, it was the crankshaft that was twisted, and I sent it off to one of my buddies who worked at Tektronix at the model shop. He straightened it out, had to chill one side and heat the other side up and then move it. Got it all back together, and mix the oil and the gas, boom, fired up, Wang! And all of a sudden I could hear this boom, 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 boom through the house. And here comes Dad. And he probably thought that I was monkeying with his chainsaw. And man, I hit the gas. And right when he opened the door to the garage door, it just sucked all of the smoke into the house and I took off. Well, when I got back, he said, "Hey, I could have chased you down, And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but I got it running. You said I wasn't going to get it running." So that was my first motorcycle. And I bought another dirt bike. And you can actually see in another picture up here, I've got 3-wheelers. I actually got a road bike. Being fairly athletic, there's a picture there of me power line level. We were actually jumping over the road. So the power line is behind me. So we would come up to the jump and then we would get enough air to go high enough for the power lines, and then the mountain would kind of drop off, and then we would just land and keep on going. So, I never wore helmets except on my road bike, never got hurt. If we got cut, like if on my hand, where like you get cut deep enough where you can actually talk like a puppet with it, I got, 2 pieces of tape, across my hand. We called it a butterfly. So, we were, as growing up, I had a really good childhood. I felt like a little bit of a black sheep, going against what my parents told me, about buying the motorcycle. But I think all was forgiven once, my dad realized that I was never going to be a great NBA player. First of all, I'm not tall enough. But, I just literally could fix, everything around the house and, even change his oil in his truck. He actually ruined an engine in his truck because he never changed the oil in it. And that's a whole story in itself. But honestly, with all the sports and things like that, had a good childhood. Also, you'll see a picture of me pole vaulting. So in 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade, there was a student that his name was Bill Johnson, and he was 1 year older than me, and he was a hockey player, and he actually played for the Portland Timbers, and he was super fast. Anyway, he and I started to work out year-round on the pole vault, and when he graduated, I was a junior. He actually got a full ride to Arizona State in track and field, and he went 15-6. And my senior year, I was undefeated in the pole vault, and I got a scholarship to Willamette University, which is a lawyer's college. And me being mechanical the way that I am, that just really was not a good fit. And I had already worked, since I was 12 years old, making $10 an hour, back in the 80s. It was really good money. I took flying lessons, put some crazy engines in cars, 396 in a 72 Camaro, 283 in a 79 Datsun pickup, where every time you shift, you'd hit your head on the back window. 3-wheelers, go-karts, motorcycles, all that stuff, and still had money to pay for my college. So that was just a blessing in itself. And Dad never had to pay for college, just because he probably wouldn't have, because my 2 sisters were in front of me. And if anybody here knows that you've got siblings that are ahead of you, you're pretty much going to be the last one, and you're going to not have, your parents aren't going to have any money to send you to college. You know, the one thing that we never did as kids was cuss. You know, I never heard my dad cuss. We as kids growing up, even in the entire neighborhood, um, you would never hear, you know, any kind of bombs out there, you know, the F-bomb or anything like that. There was none of that going on, which was kind of cool. My parents were, man, they were holy rollers at the church, and I'll tell you what, that just scared the living bejesus out of me. Um, I it was, you know, one thing to be on a two-stroke with your adrenaline pumping, but it was another thing to go to a holy roller church and actually just being scared. You know, that was really the only time in my life that I was actually scared and somewhat traumatized as at a young age. So one of the reasons, you know, that I ended up doing the pole vault is that, you know, my parents told me that I had to go out for one sport, and even though I got a scholarship, I didn't use it. You know, fast forward to 1999, you can see that here's some pictures of my kids. So between 1991 and 1999, I had two wonderful kids, and Liz and Sam. Liz is older, and women are so much smarter. As the oldest child, she is just a brain, and Sam is also very, very smart. I think both of my kids are way smarter than I am, and I'm still pretty talented in athletics. And Sam was a wonderful athlete. So was Liz. Liz was top 10 in the state in the 1500, and Sam was the third fastest kid on the team on football, and he was even better in wrestling and snowboarding. I took him up one time to learn how to snowboard, and he got an all lift pass even to the Black Diamond areas. He was just really super good. So fast forwarding to this 1999, here I am with two beautiful kids and divorced. And, you know, when I graduated from college, I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree and also a bachelor's degree in manufacturing. And one of the most devastating things that happened to me, you know, just regressing just a little bit here, was when I graduated from college. It really took me 3 years to kind of find my niche. And my niche, I didn't find my niche found me. It was probably one of the most darkest times I've ever had in my life. And I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up, you know, feeling sorry for myself or crying over spilt milk. So for me to come out of college and think that I was invincible, and then enter corporate America and realize that, oh my gosh, you know, this is like an all-out competition, and you know, just falling flat on my face, you know, for the first 3-4 jobs was literally just devastating until about 1991 or 1992. I started a job as a temp job, just feeding papers in printers. And then when the R&D manager found out that I had a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, you know, they asked me to become part of the design team there. And man, that was right when, you know, it was JIT, which was just in time, and then all tack times. And I got all this great training, you know, putting together work instructions and training other employees. And, you know, I was just really natural at how things went together, you know, just from taking apart a motorcycle. You know, you've got die castings, you've got plastic injection moldings, you've got, you know, steel frames, welding, nuts and bolts, gears, bearings, you got throttle mechanisms, cables, you know, all that stuff. And I had a natural knowledge of just how things fit up. So they literally sent me all over the United States, reviewing other people's manufacturing processes and giving them, ideas on what to do. So at the same time, my I got divorced, and I was spending a little bit more time with mom and dad. And when I would come home from school at 7th, 8th, 9th grade, all the way up until I was 18, I literally would grab the paper, open it up, and I would circle all the good deals. And then I would meticulously fold it back up together and put it on Dad's chair as if I'd never touched it. Well, Dad would start at the beginning of the paper. He'd finally get to the sports section when he got home, and then he'd fall asleep. Very seldom would he ever mention anything that I'd ever circled in the paper. But in 1999, he said, "Hey, I got to show you something." Took me into his office, and it was one of those legal drawers, the depth of a legal drawer, it was wide, and he had ripped out every single clipping that I had circled. And he said to me, if we'd have bought some of those really good deals, we probably would have been millionaires. And it was a grudge that I had against my dad. But then he told me, he says, "Hey, we're flying to Georgia next week. You need to take a week off." And we met 2 millionaires there that all they did was buy houses. So in 1999, we literally bought commercial property, and we bought residential foreclosures, and it was a ministry because my dad was really involved in the church. And it began to fulfill a dream of being able to create a corporation. So having this fear now of being in corporate America with the target on your back, and they're paying you a little bit too much money, and there's 3 people that want your job. Now I started to get this inkling, that I needed to start some corporations. I started a corporation that built a little gearbox. I started a corporation that bought, real estate. And when we sold all of our real estate in 2005, and if you remember, in 2006, we had a huge crash in the market, and we looked like geniuses. My ex-wife at that time felt that I was worth a little bit more money than I was, and she sued me, and I went bankrupt, and I lost the gearbox company, which, by the way, today still is in business. She owns it. And I basically went bankrupt at that point. Then I started a rep firm. Then in 2010, 2011, I started a machine shop, which actually reached a couple $1 million. And at the same time, in 2012, I started a driving school. Well, I had 2 other partners. So there was 3 of us in the machine shop and the driving school. And it was just, if you've ever had a partner in business, it is just hell on earth. Because you really don't want to be married to them, but you're married to them. And so through stock swaps, we swapped. I became the sole proprietor of the driving school. They became the sole proprietors of the machine shop. And within 2 years after that transaction, they went bankrupt. And currently, right now, I've got about 25 employees. And any kind of business, you're a little bit out of control. So we're out of control, we're profitable, and it was a good thing. I was working at not only trying to greenside these corporations, I was working a full-time job. And I was also doing all the quoting at the machine shop, and I was also running the driving school. it was just a lot of work. And at the same time, I was traveling to Canada, Brazil, Mexico, Japan. And then eventually, when I had just the driving school, I I had an apartment in China because I was in China so much. So it was probably in 1997, 98, 99, I had this word up on the wall, and it was freedom. Freedom. I just wanted to be free of a house payment, a car payment, insurance, having to pay for gas, having to pay for groceries, be able to travel. And what kind of drove me towards that whole freedom and whole trying to greenside corporations and things like that was I had 2 kids. And I love my kids. Through my career, of my travel, I was able to attend their practices and sports every other week because I traveled 1 week on and then came back. And I would coordinate it where I would just show up at their practices all week. And it was pretty cool. Liz was now 17. I required them to go out at least for one sport. She was top 10, in the 1500, and Sam was, well-known varsity for his ability in football and wrestling. He absolutely loved wrestling. So, we're sitting there at Liz's 17th birthday. She was 17. And, I said, I'm so proud of you guys. And both of my kids in unison, they said, Dad, you are always there for us. And that certainly meant the world to me. And, we're a pretty close knit family at this point. And my daughter especially has always been there for me. But freedom, that has been my motto since, 1997, somewhere in there, when I had my kids. So the way that I grew up, and these were the wisdom words that were taught to me as a child. Anytime I got cut, I got 2 pieces of tape. I never went to the hospital for stitches, except when I broke my arm. But these were the wisdom words when I was growing up. My parents would say, because I said so, that's why. Don't get up from the dinner table until you're done eating. If you don't eat all your vegetables, then you're not getting up. Shut the door behind you. It's cold. We're not heating the barn. And my dad would always tell me, hey, toughen up, hold on with 2 hands. And if you don't have something to say, that's good, don't say it at all. If you can't say something nice, don't say it at all. That was the one. If it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And for me, I always circled the good deals. And because my dad snuck up on me that one time, I always had my head on a swivel. And my dad is a watcher on the wall, and I have that gift also. I can walk into a room and pretty much tell, little different personalities and nuances. And there's some people that I just won't be around because I just don't have a good vibe. I also grew up, and I definitely know the difference between religion, being spiritual, having life balance, and the laws of the universe. My dad would always tell me to eat, I always ate healthy, exercise, straighten up, keep your nose clean, and never say never. And the one thing that I really learned about life was nothing is impossible. It's just that the impossible takes just a little bit longer. If there's nothing to cry about, don't cry over spilt milk. Be grateful, because there's probably tons of people out there that have it way worse than you do. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. As a kid, we had no reason to cuss. And the greatest things in life that my parents taught me, probably not biblical, but if you're really super mad at somebody and you're about ready to pounce on them, just go into the bathroom and point your finger, and then count how many fingers are pointing back at you. The other one that my parents were marriage counselors, and I could listen to my mom and dad on the phone with people, and I could tell you exactly where the conversation was going to go. But the bottom line here with life is that when one door closes, one door opens. And it always happens in that sequence. And Dad always told me to walk through the open door. Later on, I discovered that if you walk through it, you think too much and you start to doubt yourself. And that's why you should run through the open doors. You could literally, in a day's time, just boom, 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 run through the open doors and not worry about, anything that closed up in your life, because it's led you somewhere that is much, much better. In 2002, I met my wife, Shasha, and you can see a picture of her there. We're at an ELO concert, and she and I are very, very compatible, except on food. She grew up in China, and I love some of the Chinese food, but there's also some of the things that she eats, like snails and things like that I just really, don't have a craving for. But she and I have a blast together, and we love each other very, very much. So with QHS, one thing that QHS did for me is that device. When I first got my device, I had it for probably 20 minutes, maybe an hour, and it literally took my pain away. There was a point in time where I had a really bad skiing accident that I could not wash my neck. I couldn't raise my hands enough, and I was using 2 of these pain creams, these CBD pain creams per week on my shoulders, just trying to get rid of the pain. I was in so much pain. When I got my device in 2022, my pain went away. And since that time, I have donated to QHS every single month the equivalent of what I would have spent on that. And I keep this container here because it's empty, and it's a reminder to me to donate to QHS for just the gift that they gave me. Also, I hope that my cancer goes away. I hope that my eyesight, I have 2 glasses, one to see the screen and one to see far. And just to get rid of all that pain and suffering. The technologies that are coming out right now for healing, for clean water, for energy, the replicators, different kinds of travel, anti-gravity, levitation, just clean food. Bobby Kennedy said it best, let's get rid of all of the things that are making us sick in our food. So important. And if we can get clean air, that would even be better. So if I can give to QHS, that's what I do. And if one day I can own or participate in a healing center, or start a healing center, that would be one of my dreams. So this is well worth the journey, and everybody have a great night, and thank you so much.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.